Physical game copies are becoming a dying art, and what better way to talk about it than with Halo Wars Limited Edition. I figured today's video would be more lighthearted and less focused on editing and more so on the gaming industry and just where I grew up in the 2000s and how gaming has evolved into this dying industry, which is like physical copies. I'm not going to really be showcasing like gameplay footage or anything like that with this limited edition, but I want to cover just how important it was in the 2000s on physical copies. Stuff like this, which is more like a steelbook of Halo Wars, is very, very important to keep around. It pretty much showcases history, and it's good to always have something like this. I've also kept copies of every Halo ever made, basically, other than Master Chief Collection and Halo Infinite, and that's because I'm just like a big Halo nerd. Halo just got me into Xbox consoles in general. If you remember like the 2000s E3 trailer of this game, it really brought forth games like Call of Duty and Gears of War. It was like the one of its kind, you know, and so I've kept these copies since I was a kid. One thing that newer generations are missing out on are hard copies similar to this, where it's like a steelbook, and how important it is to keep in history. There is a big conversation around DRM and pirating video games in general, mainly because the studios behind them are not keeping up with older games and they are being lost to time, and that's just something that needs to stop. Enough about gaming and where it's heading, and let's talk about Halo Wars Limited Edition. Realistically, are you going to buy a limited edition of Halo Wars, or would you buy a special edition of Halo 2 like what you see online? Halo Wars Limited Edition really didn't need to happen, but the stuff that goes into this is actually pretty unique, and it gives like a story of Halo in general. If you don't remember, in the 2000s there were also like Halo novels and stuff that you could buy. There was so much lore behind Halo, and it was very, very interesting to see, and this kind of continues that tradition because of what's inside. I've kind of preserved everything in here. I've kept everything pretty much in its original packaging other than like the physical game. There is like a Spirit of Fire patch that was in a sleeve at one point that I took out because I just thought that the patch itself was pretty unique to offer to consumers at the time. I can only imagine that this was pretty expensive to produce, and I can see why the industry has kind of shifted towards digital gaming, but you lose the art in itself. I believe at the time these were like $80 to $90 if I totally remember correctly. I'm probably wrong about that, but at that time games in general were $60. If you don't remember what Halo Wars was, it was more like a strategic based game that was bird's eye view, that was a precursor to a lot of the mobile games that you got out of the 2010s. So it was pretty successful, even though Bungie's name was not attached to it, and a lot of people loved it because you could build your own base and fight the way that you wanted to fight the enemies. The whole thing is a sleeve in itself, and what comes in this sleeve is pretty much like a steel book, which is pretty freaking cool and pretty much like a graphic novel. Now, I do need to note that I've seen these limited editions of Halo Wars sell online between $30 to $300, which is pretty insane with the Halo lore online and how everything is, especially with like the Halo 3 console that came out with the 360 in the 2000s. I also need to note that what came with Halo Wars Limited Edition were 3 special maps that came out of Halo 3 that you could download, which is really, really unique of this time period. But back then, a lot of games came with like DLC codes. Call of Duty did stuff like this. It was pretty unique of the time to get like free maps, but in this time period that really doesn't exist, and it's kind of sad. So I kept this pretty preserved. I have this gold trial, which is something that you do not see anymore. Trust me, I've used these codes before. But if you want the Honor Guard tank or the Halo Wars H3 maps, then here's your chance. One thing that has become a dying art is books like this. This is like a hint book on Halo Wars itself, and it is just a masterpiece of art and how to, combat enemies and do special, abilities. This needs to freaking come back. Same goes with like how to play Halo Wars. This has become a dying art, and it's really hard to find this whenever you go to like a used game shop. A lot of this information is gone. I figured that something this important would come up throughout history. Obviously, you have the physical copy of the game. I'm never going to get rid of this particular edition of Halo Wars. Now, opening up this novel is a unique sight in itself because it folds like this, and then you get the patch right here. It's a really cool sight to see in 2025 because, like I said, you just don't get something like this anymore. Once you have it open, you get the novel itself, which is called Halo Wars Genesis. Back in the day, there was a lot of Halo fandom behind Halo itself, and they created multiple books and multiple novels, and this just happens to be one of them, which is pretty interesting because it's more like a comic illustration. It's just something that you don't see in the gaming industry anymore. I can only imagine how much it costs to produce something like this, but it's so unique to see. It's a piece of history that I saw as a kid, and I became a fan. Like, I became a fan of stuff like this whenever I was a kid. Behind the novel, you still have like little slip sheets that I still have in the original plastic that I have not taken out, and I'm not going to take out, so I'm not going to discuss too in depth with what this is because realistically I don't know. I'm going to keep it in its original plastic covering. There you have it. This is something that you do not see in the gaming industry anymore, and I wanted to showcase this as much as possible because it is a dying art. How many games that you know of came out in the 2000s that had a more like a comic book novel on the inside? It was very unique of its time, and there's a reason why Halo Wars is still one of the best gaming experiences. One thing that I have to mention with this is it's reversible. They put so much effort into designing this. You can kind of see it like shimmer and everything. It's just something that you don't see in the gaming industry anymore. Like, it's dead. It is a dead art. I wish stuff like this would come back. Somebody put so much time and effort into designing this and making it perfect for the consumers, and now it's gone. This will be the end of my video. What do you think about stuff like physical copies? Do you think that they should come back, especially with how unique this Halo Wars limited edition is? Or do you think that it should die and be a dying art? With that being said, I really just wanted to dumb down my content just a little bit and showcase things that I have kept throughout my childhood, and it's just the nerdy side in me that I wanted to showcase.